Hello, Daniel.
Hi.
How are you doing?
Okay. I've been kind of depressed, actually, but, um,
Okay. Been feeling depressed? Tell
yeah.
me a little bit more exactly about how you've been feeling. What's been going on that's made you feel so depressed?
Well, just, we talked about all the things that I could do to do things differently, and it all made sense, but then when it comes time to do it, it just doesn't work for me. I just can't figure out how to make it work and really make the changes to my behavior. So it's been a rough week, just so I'm depressed over the, just it just reinforced that I feel um, that I can't make these changes.
So it's been a really rough week. I'm hearing you say, and it sounds to me like you're frustrated and things have been difficult. I don't know exactly what specifically. Maybe we could explore what specifically has been going on that's made you feel this way.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, the sessions have been positive because a lot of things make more sense, but the harder I work at this, and then it doesn't, the changes don't come, it makes me even more discouraged than
Right.
before we were really trying, before I was trying therapy. And I've become a
Mm-hmm.
lot more of my feelings, a
Mm-hmm.
lot more aware of how I feel because I'm thinking about it all the time. Like, okay, what's going on in my head, to when I'm trying to make this change or do things differently than before.
Well, it sounds to me like you're explaining that you feel like, or you think that the more you're, you know, emphasized and the more you're entertaining, um, thinking about how you feel and about what's been going on, that it's only exacerbating the issue and making you feel even worse because you're just kind of sitting there pondering on the negative situation. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
I mean, since we started doing the therapy sessions, there, there have been some positive things, but it's up and down. And when I come to the session and we talk, things get more clear to me,
Okay.
and then I go try different approaches, and I just kind of fall flat on my face, and it just
Mm,
makes me feel like
mm.
that much more. I just feel that I can't do it. I just can't do what I need to do.
You know, it seems, as I'm hearing you try to explain what's been going on, that there seems to be a pattern of, um, you're trying to explain to me how you feel, but these aren't feelings. These are thoughts that you're explaining. You're talking to me about the things that you're telling yourself. The things that are going through your mind, and so, what are some of those things that maybe you're telling yourself that cause you to feel so down?
Hmm. Um, that's interesting because I guess I'm thinking about my thought processes, but I'm also at the same time aware that I'm not happy. I maybe sometimes I can't quite put the right label on the emotion that I have. I just I do know I feel depressed a lot of the time. Um, so I think that word seems to describe a lot of times
Depressed,
how I feel: discouraged, depressed.
discouraged. Okay.
But I'll give you an example um, of just kind of how things have been going. So, like,
Okay.
last Wednesday was a really bad day. So,
I'm sorry to hear
as you know, I made some progress on fixing, like, trying to get up and get wake up in the morning, get going, get to work early.
that.
Tried some of the
Mm-hmm.
strategies, um, but Wednesday I overslept. I didn't want to get up.
Okay.
I kind of reverted back to the, old patterns of
Mm.
it's not worth it. At least I'm aware, that I was telling myself that, and afterward I thought about that, but I still did it anyway. See, that's why it's so frustrating, because now I have strategies, and then I'm still failing to do what I was trying to do, and it just makes me feel like, okay, um, or I guess I should say, instead of feel, I should say, it makes me have the thought that I can't do this, because even with the new tools I have, I'm still doing the same thing. But anyway, on Wednesday, I got up late. I got to work a little bit late, and that affected everybody else. My boss is mad at me. People's jobs are more difficult when I'm there late, and so everybody's running behind and have to do extra work to work around that. And then, so I didn't get breakfast. I didn't really eat a good lunch. So really all day I didn't eat very well. And, it was a rough day at work. Came home. I was supposed to go to the grocery store on the way home because we needed some things like milk and eggs, some staple items that I was supposed to pick up. That was my job. And because of the day, or for whatever reason, I just neglected that duty. And then my wife called me, and she was trying to encourage me, but she asked did I remember to pick them up, and I was like, oh no. And I was like, well, I guess I could go back to the store. And then she said, never mind, I'll just do it, you take care of you. But then there was other stuff I was supposed to do at home. And even though she did my job of picking up a few grocery items, then she comes home and I still haven't done the housework that was supposed to be my turn to do. And she ends up being a little bit irritable, but telling me just, never mind, I'll do it. And then instead of like being grateful to her, I just got into the mindset of, I'm a failure, and, I'm never going to change. She's eventually going to get tired of it and just give up on me too. And and instead of spending time with her, I end up just playing video games and listening to music kind of on my own, just listening to headphones. And then she's went from being frustrated at me to being kind of mad, and then I think we kind of ended kind of on an argument. I mean, we didn't maybe, it wasn't maybe the very last thing that was said before going to sleep at night, but we had a little bit of a fight, not a real bad fight, but still it was just a bad ending to a bad day. So that kind of typifies the way my week went last week.
Wow. Well, firstly, thank you for sharing in such great detail. I really appreciate that, and your openness and willingness to do so. Definitely a lot going on there. So allow me a moment to kind of break some of this down and to reflect on some of these things. So last Wednesday you had a really bad day, and there were some things that you needed to take care of that you didn't take care of, you said, for whatever reason, and you needed to go to the store and grab a few items, and you had forgotten them. And
it makes me feel like I'm not even an adult,
Right, okay, I see. Well, Daniel, there's a lot of negative self-talk that I'm seeing here. In other words, a lot of things that you're telling yourself in your mind, put downs and things like that. I know when we were younger, at least whenever I can relate that, we were taught not to tell ourselves put downs and not to tell others put downs, and that's every bit, as you said, and it's relative. You feel like a young kid, and that's why I bring that up, but it's every bit as relative when we're adults. And does that make sense, Daniel?
Yeah, and I kind of see what you were pointing out about confusing the thoughts and the feelings with each other, and that's something I need to think about more. Right,
and in REBT, there's a technique that's called the ABC technique. That's how we remember it. And A stands for antecedent or activating event. B stands for belief, a belief about that event, or a thought about that event. And the C stands for the consequence. So there's, let's put it, for example, what you brought up, right? So what do you think maybe the activating event or the antecedent could be that occurred on Wednesday? So give me an example of one of the activating events that occurred that kind of set you into this spiral of just put downs and negative emotion.
Well, specifically kind of telling myself that, I'm incompetent,
Hmm.
where that really, those voices in my head are screaming at me, it was when, my wife reminded me that I was supposed to pick up groceries, and I forgot it after everything else. Um, it really wouldn't have taken much time to swing by the grocery store on the way, and going back. I mean, basically, I wasted a lot of time, and just that forgetting that and not being responsible just kind of set in motion those just a flurry of thoughts about being incompetent, incapable, immature, um,
See, these are all
unable
put
to
downs.
change.
Mm. These are all put downs. This sounds like to me what would be the B in the ABC, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. So
Right.
this would be the beliefs. These are the things that you're telling yourself, and
Right.
depending on how long you've been in this habit, Daniel, we can essentially, to put it in a relatable term, we can essentially um, program ourselves, brainwash ourselves. These thoughts and beliefs that we tell ourselves so much, it becomes so ingrained, it becomes habitual almost, right?
So what is the relationship between sort of that negative, telling myself negative things, and these emotions? Is it
Sure.
the emotions causing it, or the thought causing the emotion, or
Sure. Well,
both?
and that's a great question, and I appreciate the willingness to learn and the interest, and again, the openness to do work on yourself because it's not easy, and this stuff is very difficult. It's complicated. Um, and so, again, great question. This has to do with the beliefs that you tell yourself can result in, they're going to result in consequences, inevitably, right? So you tell yourself, what'd you say? I'm incompetent, right? You feel like a little kid. You're not mature. You're immature, right? All because you forgot something. A quick slip of the mind, and could be another way to look at it. Quick slip of the mind, and instead you're telling yourself these things, and that could be, again, as I said, it could be habitual, and so you're telling yourself these things. And what is the C, do you think? What are some of the consequences? Give me, say, two consequences.
Um, for the negative self-talk, the
Right,
consequences.
right. Some consequences that occur because of the things that you're telling yourself.
Well, I definitely don't feel better.
So
It's not very constructive to fixing the problem right at that moment, because I
mm-hmm.
just feel more drained and more like I just want to give up if I if something happens and then I start saying those things to myself. It doesn't really make it better. It makes it just spiral, worse and worse.
That is very true, and I think that is a very, very thoughtful insight. Actually, it's not what I expected, not the insight I expected. It's very, very thoughtful. Go on. What's another one of the consequences?
Well, I guess when I get negative like that, I bring my wife down, even if she's being positive and supportive. So, at first she's being positive, and then she's getting irritated, and then she's actually arguing or fighting with me, and I feel it's all my fault. And so, then her negativity feeds into mine, and it just gets worse. So that would be another consequence, I suppose, is that I kind of bring her into my bad way of thinking. I
Okay.
suppose.
Okay. So that's another consequence. Sort of brings down your wife. You know what I mean? And you definitely don't want to do that. You want to, as you've expressed before in our last sessions, you want to be a better person, and that's what you're here for, Daniel. And again, thank you for being here. You know, I know it's going to sound like a broken record, but I really do mean it. You know, and again, it's very difficult to talk about very personal issues with someone that you don't know. So some of these cognitive distortions that you're having, Daniel, um, you know, negative filtering, like always telling yourself that you're not considering the positive, like things are always bad. Things are always bad, and things will never get better. That's what we call negative filtering, right? Where you just don't consider the positive. So, can you tell me anything, even if it's the slightest thing, positive that occurred on Wednesday?
Well, I guess things can always be worse than they are. So
Okay,
it is kind of hard for me to look at the positive, but I guess um, you know, I did make it to work. I did
okay,
um, you know, I did eat something. I didn't have a wreck on the way to work or on the way home. I didn't end up, you know, so sick that I missed work or missed the next day. Um, you know, things did get done. You know,
mm-hmm.
unfortunately, that was, you know, mostly my wife doing it. But um, I mean, I guess I will say that her willingness to help me and to be understanding, even when I let her down like this and let myself down, it's still that part's kind of encouraging. You know, that I
Okay,
know that she's committed to me and to our relationship, and you know, she's not a selfish person,
okay,
and she kind of picks up the slack for what I fail to do. I really hate taking advantage of that, but you know, I know that I need her, and that I guess that's part of why it scares me, because I feel like, you know, if I don't change, it's a threat to our relationship. You
mm-hmm.
know,
Mm-hmm.
um, I'm trying, and at least she sees that I'm trying. So I guess that's another positive thing, that she, you know, in the past she questioned whether I wanted to change, and she's come to understand along with me that it's not entirely about wanting something bad enough, but it's also about like knowing the right way to go about it.
Mm,
Because I have wanted to change, but just didn't know how.
right. Yeah.
So I'm starting. I guess that's what's made me have a little bit of hope, is kind of seeing things differently, or like having a new approach to the problems that I haven't had in the past. To try something a little different.
Okay, sure.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely, perspective is everything. Perspective has, um, I mean, everything to do with how we perceive things is gonna. It has a lot to do with kind of what I said is related to the ABC. Um, so that ABC again is the activating event, the belief about it, and then the consequences. So on Wednesday, back to Wednesday. Tell me a little bit more about what went on Wednesday that made you, and the thoughts that you told yourself.
So, I mean, I guess each point of the day there might have been something a little different. Um, and I have to stop and think about what was emotion and what was,
Good.
you
Yes.
know, what was the mindset, so or the
Take time.
thought.
Yes.
So I guess I didn't sleep well. I stayed up a little bit too late the night before, and that was part of not getting up. Um, and so I kind of reverted to the, you know, hitting the snooze, hit it twice. Just, you know, I remember telling myself it's not worth it. I just don't feel like going to work, and I wanted to just like call in sick, but I knew that would just make things worse. And I said, well, I'll just sleep a little bit longer. And, you know, then I'm scrambling, you know, I get up and say, I'm already late. I'm already, you know, I wasn't late, but I knew that the time it would take me to get ready and get to work, I was definitely already going to be late. And I really wanted to go back to sleep even then, but I finally said, I got to get up because I'm already going to be a few minutes late. And, I probably should have texted my boss that I would just be a tiny bit late, but I was hoping, I could just slip in and no one would notice. And, it was only maybe about 10 between 10 and 15 minutes. But because of the backlog from the day before in the warehouse, and what everybody was, they had their work cut out for them as soon as they walked in the door too, and most people get there a little early, like I was trying to do, and I did a few times the week before. But people are kind of waiting on me, and it's very uncomfortable feeling. So I guess I'm trying to put my game face on, but I'm really thinking, everybody thinks I'm a loser, and they're right. I guess that's what I'm telling myself at that point. And
They're right. Can I stop you there?
mm-hmm.
Why do you tell yourself, why do you agree that they're correct? What evidence do you have for that?
Well,
You're a loser.
everybody can make a mistake every once in a while and be late. Something can happen. You can have a flat tire going to work. But, it's the pattern and being known for it. And, I sense from the way people treat me, it's a little condescending.
Firstly, your name isn't Loser, your name is Daniel, and it's not good to label yourself. That's what we call labeling. You're labeling yourself as a loser. Your name is Daniel, and
Right.
you're here to find help. You're
Right.
here to simply discuss ways to become a better person, and that's a very good thing. And that's not something to be ashamed of. The fact that you have difficulties. Everybody has difficulties. The people at the warehouse, have difficulties. So, Daniel, let's work on the things that we are telling ourselves. And as I pointed out, you've labeled yourself a loser. So, do you think that you can work on, catching yourself, as you've mentioned? You've been more aware of your thoughts and emotions, and I congratulate you for that. You've made tremendous progress. Can you work on, maybe as a homework assignment or just as a practice that is very good, to work on catching yourself with those negative thoughts? Have a note card in your pocket if you have to, pull it out, write down that thought. And guess what? There's going to be some feelings that are going to come from that thought. Right? Because remember, we talked about the ABC. There are going to be feelings that come from the things that you have, are telling yourself, those negative
Right.
things. So write those down too. And just like how we try to reduce somebody's weight or, caloric intake, well, how are we going to do that? We have to start tracking it. So it's the same concept. So Daniel, would you please, if you're serious about learning different ways to think and therefore behave and have different consequences, then would you please be willing to do that?
Yes. So basically, you want me to take notes, sort of journal on a piece of paper throughout the day, negative thoughts, self-dialogue, or emotions, or both?
Yes, both, because and that's key. The reason why is if you just pull out the card, you write down, I told myself these things, and put it back in there. Well, that's not really going to serve much purpose. We want to acquire as much data from Daniel, and about what's going on as we can. So, not only that, the other reason for the thoughts is the feelings rather, is I want you to learn and start to recognize the connection between the thoughts and the behaviors and feelings, right? Those three things, that ABC. Remember we talked about, right?
Right.
There are those thoughts and those feelings and those behaviors. So that's why I want you to write down the feelings as well. Does that make sense?
Yes, that does make sense. I think that I can commit to doing that.
All right, Daniel. Well, I really, really, really appreciate you coming in, and I think it's been a great session, and I appreciate your honesty and openness, and I look forward to seeing you in the next session.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Daniel.